contest, with Taylor of Britain hitting the floor several times before the sledgehammer attack of Tucker. A gallant loser in a real slugging match.
The whole 22 stone of Man Melton McNabb, the human Himalaya.
In white trunks, Floyd Patterson, the title holder. In dark trunks, Brian London, the challenger from Britain. A blistering combination, both hands hitting with pulverizing effect, and London is down.
It really is the acid test for him, the degree course, this one.
This is undeniably a golden era for British big men in the boxing ring. In May 2021, the Bible of Boxing, Ring Magazine, had Tyson Fury ranked at number 1, Anthony Joshua at number 2, and Dillian Whyte at number 4, behind America's Deontay Wilder. With the UK's population being equivalent to just 0.84% of the total world population, that ranking represents a monumental achievement, and with Joe Joyce currently securing the 7th place position and Daniel Dubois rising through the ranks, more could potentially be added to the top 10 list. And yet, although many Brits of my generation have become accustomed to packing out stadiums across the country in order to witness heavyweight world title bouts, this tradition would have been entirely alien to many of the past. Heavyweight world title fights just rarely happened within these shores. The history of British heavyweight boxers, right up to the unstoppable rise of Lennox Lewis in the 1990s, was plagued with crippling disappointment and inglorious turns, a history of gallant failure. In fact, for many decades throughout the 20th century, American journalists and promoters described those who boxed north of £200 and hailed from the UK as horizontal heavyweights. They were basically insinuating that the British fighters were fat. Hence, for practically all of the last century, British boxing fans were forced to endure ridicule and derision from American fight supporters and media figures regarding the dubious quality and durability of our heavyweights. There was an overwhelming belief that British heavies lacked the strength and resilience. Consequently, they lacked the finesse and cojones to win the richest prize in sport. And this inference was somewhat corroborated. From Bob Fitzsimmons' loss to James J. Jeffries in New York in 1899, up until Lewis was crowned WBC champion in 1992, there were a dozen unsuccessful attempts to win the heavyweight championship. A colourful story of bravado, courage under fire, but ultimately always ending in defeat. In August 1937, Tommy Farr took on the brilliant American Joe Louis. Farr took the fight to Louis in front of 40,000 fans at Yankee Stadium, and the bloodied and battered Brit put up a truly gutsy effort, viciously taking the fight to the champion. In the end, Farr lost by a decision, but gave an impressive account of himself and won a moral victory in New York. Don Cocker was next as he took on another American legend in Rocky Marciano in San Francisco in 1955. Cocker fought his heart out, but this was Marciano at his brutal and dirty best. The brilliant Bud Schulberg described the fight in the pages of Sports Illustrated as follows. This was a bare-knuckle brawl with gloves, and not a pleasant sight either, as an uncouth, merciless, uncontrolled and truly vicious fighter wore down an ox-legged, resolute fat man who came into the ring with the honour of the British Empire weighing heavily, and consciously on his massive blubbery shoulders. Bit harsh. Marciano dished out a fearful beating before recording a TKO victory in the 9th.
One American headline later sums it all up with, Rocky world champ, Don champion of courage.
Hartlepool-born Brian London was next to try his luck when he challenged Floyd Patterson in 1959. Patterson was guided by the brilliant Custer Amato, who would later go on to coach Mike Tyson, and the American finished the job in 11 rounds, knocking out London for the first time in his career. The next Brit was Henry Cooper, who twice mixed it with Muhammad Ali, and on the second occasion the WBC World Heavyweight title was on the line at Highbury. Their 1966 clash lacked the drama of their first meeting, when Cooper had momentarily turned the boxing world upside down by decking a prime Ali at Wembley on June the 16th, 1963. Their return was a lot more one-sided, with Cooper stopped on cuts in the 6th, his face a seeping blur of crimson.
Cooper was fast. He was hitting awful hard, and his hook was good, but I was a little too fast tonight.
Next up was Joe Bugner. In a professional career which lasted some 32 years, the broad-shouldered Bugner fought just about everybody at the top level. He met the greatest Muhammad Ali twice, including once in a world title challenge in the searing heat of Kuala Lumpur, and Joe Frazier once. Disproving the American view that all British heavyweights had no chin, he took his licks against both the all-time greats and took both of them to the scorecards. Hugh McIlvanney, the doyen of sports writing, memorably summed Bugner up when he said, "In his prime, Joe Bugner had the physique of a Greek statue, but he had fewer moves." Ouch. In July 1986, Frank Bruno boxed Tim Witherspoon at Wembley Stadium for the WBA heavyweight crown, infamously coming apart in the penultimate stanza after a bright start. After a quick victory against Joe Bugner at White Hart Lane, Bruno was scheduled to fight against Mike Tyson for the WBA, WBC and IBF titles. However, the fight was postponed as Tyson's private life unravelled.
The Tyson case would be pivotal in the way we view date rape and sexual relations in this country.
After the fight began, Bruno was on the floor inside the opening 20 seconds but showed great bravery and guts by picking himself back up and going toe-to-toe with Tyson. He would find a huge left hook himself later in that wild first round, which caused the revered BBC commentator Harry Carpenter to shout. For a brief moment there was a suspension of disbelief. You could hear a pin drop. Bruno was one punch from immortality, in with a chance of beating the most feared boxer that ever lived. Yet somehow Tyson survived the crisis and would go on to deliver a violent coup de grace in round 5. On the 31st of October 1992, Lewis knocked out the Canadian Donovan Razor Ruddock in 2 rounds for the #1 contender's position in the WBC rankings. It was Lewis's most impressive win to date and established him as one of the world's best heavyweights. The win over Ruddock made Lewis the mandatory challenger for Riddick Bowe's heavyweight championship. However, Bowe held a press conference during which he threw his WBC title belt in a rubbish bin, relinquishing it to avoid a mandatory defence against Lewis. On the 14th of December 1992, the WBC declared Lewis its champion, making him the first heavyweight title holder from Britain in the 20th century. Now you may ask, why did Bowe avoid Lewis? And this is still debated to this day. It's probably down to Rock Newman, Bowe's manager, and his greed during the pre-fight negotiations. Regardless, a Brit had finally ended the wait, albeit on a technicality. An evident indication of how far British heavyweights have progressed over the course of a century, Lennox Lewis against Frank Bruno took place in October 1993, the first time 2 British-born boxers fought for a version of the world title in the modern era. It seems that, after close to 100 years out in the wilderness, the British had finally exercised their horizontal demons, and were beginning to be respected by the division. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please leave a like and consider subscribing if you enjoy this content. Also, feel free to leave any topics related to fitness or sports in the comments regarding future videos that I could make. See you again soon.